I want to thank everybody for being present here this evening. I want to say the Public Safety Director and the Chief are at a wake of a police officer who passed. So I allowed them to do that while I take care of this. It is, not news that our whole city is hurting today after the tragic shooting that took place last night and left 3 people dead, including a child. At about 8:34 p.m., calls came in to the Newark Police Department regarding a male that was supposedly shot on Johnson Avenue. At the end of it all, 4 individuals were actually shot. 3 suffered fatal gunshot wounds. 1 was a 7-year-old boy, and one of the people that was deceased is the suspected perpetrator. So the perpetrator was shot and killed on the scene. One of them is a survivor who is surviving gunshot wounds now as we speak, and is currently being treated and is in stable condition at University Hospital, who I might add does an outstanding job over there. This appears to be an isolated incident. It was not a targeted incident as well. The victims and the perpetrators know each other. So, and based on a preliminary investigation, it does not appear that the gentleman went in the house to do this. Weapons were found at the scene. 3 weapons were found at the scene, and based on ballistic evidence that we have, it can be associated that these weapons were used in other crimes in the city. Some of the officers sustained some non-life-threatening injuries while they were there. Obviously, the Office of Violence Prevention and Trauma Recovery was on the scene, and all of the support groups that we work with daily were also there as well. Might add, there were also drugs and other kind of paraphernalia found on the scene as well. That's just an overview of the things that I could talk about as it relates to the case there. What I do want to say is that I, unfortunately, as the mayor of the city, have to go to the hospital during these scenes and incidents. Last night, I had the terrible kind of duty to sit in a room and look at a young man, 8 years old, lifeless on a table. That is hard no matter how many times you see that. It is very difficult, especially if you have children of your own. And what it makes me contemplate in my head is a country, a state, all of us, when we get to a point where we can't protect our children, then we are in a very volatile and difficult place. We are failing as a society. While we watch this young man on his table, we're still negotiating and battling and discussing gun laws and gun control across the federal government in many places, in this country, still debating in New Jersey whether it's okay for us to carry guns in specific areas or not. I know as I watch this boy, how politicized this issue becomes, and how even some of our journalists use it as clickbait, as opportunities to drive people to their websites, to add further trauma and fear to people in our city, to make them believe that this is okay and this is where they live and this is somehow a part of what you should expect growing up in cities like Newark, and now in cities probably anywhere in America at this point. Also, how many people are going to get blamed and how many fingers are going to get pointed around the fact that this 8-year-old boy is dead on this table, and his mother and his grandmother and his uncles grieve and probably will never, ever get over this, ever, and the family and the community and all of his friends that played baseball with him at Jackie Robinson, Little League, all of his, the other 8-year-olds and 7-year-olds and 9-year-olds who played baseball with him, and what they're going to feel about his death and about the precariousness of their own lives in this situation, that if he can die, so can they. I'm wondering if it makes us feel like we're all responsible. Like if everybody's responsible. Like not just if the police are responsible, but if all of us are responsible. If the people are responsible who are trying to prevent us from giving money to community organizations so they could do the work out in the community, do you have some responsibility in this? Are you responsible if you are voting, passing legislation that allows guns to run rampantly in our communities without any checks or licenses? Are you responsible then? Are you responsible when you see things happening in your community and you don't report it, or you don't say anything about it, or you don't belong to any organizations, your block organization, your tenant group, or anything like that? Who else is responsible besides, the perpetrator who actually pulled the trigger, who got access to that gun? Like, who else is responsible? I mean, when are we all collectively going to take responsibility? I'm forced to take responsibility for it because I'm the mayor of the city. But I also include my responsibility because I'm a citizen of Newark and a resident of the state of New Jersey, and a person that stands up when the flag has to be saluted, that I have responsibility to make sure that children in this country, in this state, in Newark, can live past 8 years old and are not murdered by arbitrary violence based on whatever, anger, drug addiction, domestic violence, access to guns, syrup, as we call it, all of these things. So my heart goes out, and I grieve for the families that are involved in this, every family member who have lost a person in this tragic incident, particularly the family of the boy who lost his life, the family of the other gentleman who lost his life there, and the family of the guy who committed this crime, who ultimately had to be shot in order to stop this. Because everybody lost their life that evening, last night, and I don't like being at the hospital for no reason, and I certainly don't like being there to watch children die. So this is a passion plea, I guess, to the rest of the community here, that we need the Office of Violence Prevention and Trauma Recovery, that we need the Brick City Peace Collective, to the elected officials, the politicians who get urged on the side to do this and not do that, who turn it into politics and political haggling back and forth, that when those scenes happen, you don't get out your bed and go there. There are people who show up, and they are from the Office of Violence Prevention and all of the organizations in the Brick City Peace Collective, that they're out there in the middle of the night in them streets and in those hospitals, trying to prevent alternative violence or extra violence and calming people down who are being traumatized as this thing goes on. And I'm speaking to community members to get them more involved and engaged in what's happening. When the summer is coming, we have a summer plan. We're having a meeting with all of our partners, ATF, FBI, state police, all of those folks. That's what the police are doing. And the police are going to do what they're supposed to do. And I don't really have any issues with the work that they're getting ready to do in this community. But my talk is not about the police today, which is why it was okay for them not to be here. My talk is really to community people here today. Because this wasn't an arbitrary incident. This is not like somebody searching for somebody to shoot somebody around anger or guns or drugs. This is really personal and familial things that we have to come to grips with in this city, and it's going to take us collectively to deal with the trauma that we have and we have endured because of this country and in this country. And we're going to have to figure it out, right? That's what my plea is about today, to get us all involved and heap love on that family and all of the children that are on that Jackie Robinson Little League team who are wondering today what happened to their friend, and tomorrow who are going to contemplate whether their friend could be them. So I'll open up the floor for a few questions from the press, and anything I can answer, I will. If I can't answer it, you're going to get the normal politician talk that I cannot speak on that because there's an investigation.
Hi there, Mayor. Do we know the relationship between the shooter and the people in the house, the child, and the person who was also shot in the house? And also, can you clarify the age of the little boy? I've heard 7, I've heard 8, and then 7 again. Can you clear that up, please?
The information I have is 8 years old. I'm not completely sure, you know, I'm not 100% positive, but the information I have is 8 years old. The investigation is ongoing. There is a relationship between the people in there. I cannot speak directly what it is because I don't know 100% for sure, but I can say without a shadow of a doubt there is some, that everybody knew each other in that space. Yes.
Mayor, one of the family members convinced that the suspect was on some kind of new drug and perhaps flipped out. Can you confirm that?
I cannot confirm that he was actually on any drug. I do know drugs were present at the scene. I do know that. I don't have no toxicology report. I don't know that information.
Mayor, you did say that he did not go to the house with the intent on taking these people's lives. Can you?
Well, that is, I'm saying like this is not targeted. That's what I'm saying. Based on the investigation, it wasn't targeted. So he didn't go there targeting anybody to kill. That's what I mean, right? So, you know, for example, if there's a conflict between us two, I'm going there looking for you to commit harm. We believe in a preliminary investigation that that is not the case. He did not go there with the intent to look for somebody to harm.
Can you clear up, you said there was a fourth person involved. Can you just clear that up? I know 3 were shot, including that small child.
Four people were shot. Yes, one is in a hospital recovering now. There are 3 people that are deceased. 2 of them were killed by the perpetrator, and the perpetrator was then shot and killed himself.
And have police been able to talk to the survivors at all, get any sense of what happened, what went wrong, and why the little boy?
That I do not know. I know that they're still there investigating. There's multiple investigations going on. The state police are investigating the Newark police. The county is investigating the homicides. There's already ruled double homicide here. And that happens because of state law. Police discharged their weapon, so there's an investigation. A person died, so there's an independent investigation happening now on that as we speak, which I think will be okay. But ultimately, that's where we are now.
Any information on the shooter yet?
Yeah, the shooter is deceased. I don't know his personal information. I wasn't given that information. The police will have that. Once the county clears the entire investigation and the state okays what happened at the scene, we'll be able to give all of the information that we have. The police will at this time, and I wouldn't be able to give that information. Yes, sir.
Mayor, you talk about the value and the need for violence prevention and trauma recovery. Now that people are already dead or injured, what role, and can you tell us as specifically as you can in this case, what does the trauma recovery folk, what do they do now, and what are they doing at this particular scene, this case?
Yeah, so there's a few things that has to be done. There's a mother involved that is obviously traumatized. She was at the scene, and her son is dead. She is obviously going through very serious trauma and needs support from us, outside of police, outside of politicians, outside of other folks. She needs us, right? Her sister, who was also there, she needs us as well, and their family needs us. All of those kids who, because data tells us people who are in households and communities who have witnessed or are part of violence and crime are more likely to be a part of violence and crime themselves. So all of those children that are playing baseball growing up with this kid are traumatized and will be traumatized when he does not show up to baseball practice and everybody says that this boy was murdered, right? And in their head, they would wonder, you know, would it be me? And so it's important for us to provide counseling, but it's also important for us to intervene in those kids' lives at some point, particularly when we see some of the things that create the violence that we're witnessing now. When they internalize that and begin to act those things out, we have to intervene in that and treat it as a disease, because that's what it is.
So, sorry, just so brass tacks wise, you'll have counselors.
Sure, that's already happening. Counselors, talking to families, canvassing the neighborhood for the neighbors and the community folks like that, going into the schools, talking to the children who also might be affected by this in some capacity, providing a safe space for people who want to go there and be able to express their trauma in a safe kind of way outside of violence and hurting other people, right? Finding opportunities for people to live somewhere else, move somewhere else, things that we don't think about because they don't want to or can't go back to a house where their son was just murdered. You know, helping people get employment and doing all these other things. That's all a part of what this office does. Imagine your son being murdered in the house that you have to go sleep in every day. So there has to be a bridge that we create for you to move on so that stuff is not relived by you over and over and over again, that you feel like now taking that out on somebody else. Because you were hurt. Somebody told me hurt people, but I heard a smarter guy say to me something like, what was it? Can you say it for me, brother?
Hurt people, but heal people, and healing people can heal people.
That's right. Healed people, healing people can heal people. And that's really what the trauma recovery is about, more than anything.